Alright guys, we're back in business here with the classic Warhammer Fantasy matchup. We have the Beastmen versus Wood Elves here in this community showdown. Sandwich versus Charix. Charix, of course, winning our most recent faction war with the Wood Elves, so I'm excited to see what he can do here in ye olde domination mode. Now, as far as the Beastmen build goes here for Sandwich, it is going to be a front line of Gorherds with shields, which I do think are typically pretty good against Wood Elves. Having shields is obviously nice against missile-focused factions, and in my experience for their price point, they do trade pretty well against most of the Wood Elf infantry. Granted, this Wood Elf build is like pretty heavy metal in the front line. Like the tree can really absorb their damage. If you have Treekin stacked on top of like Dryads and War Dancers, and the tree can kind of blunt the charge of the Beastmen infantry, and then your high DPS Dryad units as well as War Dancers move in, it can get very nasty for those Gorherds. So we'll have to see how that unfolds. In the backfield, we do have Minotaurs, so it's going to be Butchers of Kalkengard and basic shielded Minotaurs. Obviously a contingency against missiles with the shielded variant, and they do give you an answer against Treekin, because Minotaurs will dominate Treekin pretty heavily in combat. Bray Shaman of Traderkin, we got Morghur the Shadowgave, and it is going to be a Wargor on a Chariot, which is an interesting choice. I'm quite excited, not excited, but interested to see. Well, I'm excited also, but really just want to kind of see his relevance here in this matchup. Sandwich, of course, a very, very strong player here. And for Charix's army, it's going to be melee Wood Elves. So he's going to be opening up with Dryads and Treekin. We have Big Daddy Durthu, who is going to have Flock of Doom, and it looks like a Shadowcaster as well, who just has Earthblood. So the Branch Wraith is, of course, a Shadow Earthblood hybrid caster. So Branch Wraith going to be dropping the heals on Durthu, where Durthu, if he does get surrounded by a bunch of Gorherds or Beastmen chaff units, will be able to use Flock of Doom and get some good value. So the battle is on, ladies and gentlemen. Both players saving up their supplies. We can do a little bit of fast forwarding while they do move up to their respective points, getting through the old kind of skirmishing phase here in the game. Now the battle is underway, so we get to see the Wargor Chariot doing a little bit of harass. He does run over the Dryads and is able to take out a single model on the approach. It kind of looks like Kazrak a little bit, but it is just going to be a Wargor there. As the Branch Wraith and Durthu going to be chasing that character away, we do see Sandwich coming under the high ground with a nice flank. Butchers of Kalkengard will just absolutely steamroll these infantry. It's going to be one-sided. Yeah, War Dancer's not going to enjoy charging into Minotaurs. God, imagine being like having to be any character or infantry, just normal, kind of semi-normal infantry in Warhammer Fantasy, and like just having to like be ordered to charge like a Minotaur unit head on, especially with like no armor, like nothing, like these poor War Dancers here. They didn't actually lose any models, but they still took a hell of a lot of damage from that charge. So, you know, those ladies are quite resilient. The Wood Elves do take the position here, so it looks like they're going to be taking this objective here, but the Beastmen taking the home objective with the Wood Elves very aggressively. The Wood Elf army is very much like kind of a Death Star style of play, just looking to kind of force the fight into one area where Durthu can maneuver very easily, and now we see Treekin versus the Minotaurs. Minotaurs, of course, getting a little bit of an edge, but when the War Dancers come in, yeah, War Dancers still do have pretty decent weapon strength, so they can put some hurt on Minotaurs. We'll have to see. Now, the Wood Elves, are they going to be playing their back objective? We see Sisters of Thorn coming in from Charix, the Forbidden Tactics, man. So they do have access to the Curse of Onrar as well as Shield of Thorns. Okay, we're going to have to keep tabs on that. Now, Wood Elves look like they're going to be taking an engagement here. We do get the Firebark Elders moving in, and they're very much like a rooted unit that when they engage somewhere, it's kind of hard to get them away because they only have infantry speed. So we do see the anti-large Minotaurs moving in, but Durthu also going to be piling in to help, but big damage coming into the Firebark Elders. However, a nice Flock of Doom, or no, Sword of Daith going down. Sword of Daith will be lowering armor and doing damage, and the Curse of Onrar also active as well. Now, big macro look, we do have double Sister of Thorn in the backfield. I guess they're not terrible in melee against like baseline chaff units, but yeah, this is a very wild build here by Charix. Now, as far as the value trading goes, it's pretty even. We do see the Minotaurs with great weapons kind of getting spanked a little bit by Durthu, a Branch Wraith, and of course these ROR Treekin. So, you know, these two very powerful combat characters plus the RORs, you know, despite how good the Minotaurs are against several of them, will be able to put some hurt on, especially since they have healing, right? We got Dryads and some idle units in the back, War Dancers as well as Treekin just kind of hanging out. Big Beastmen Alpha Strike right here, though, man. They're moving and a groove, and they're moving like movie. That's a terrible pun. But anyways, War Dancers here getting absolutely swarmed. Treekin do get the Shield of Thorns, which does have a little bit of damage reflection, and a thing I haven't really experimented with too much. But Sandwich is getting a nice Beastmen envelop here, but we'll see if the Wood Elves are going to be able to kind of break the aggression of the Beastmen and come out on the other side. So doubles Sisters of Thorn, using their Javelins against the Minotaurs with great weapons. We do have some Hounds back here, but Chaos Warhounds should actually lose the Sisters in a straight up fight. You could probably honestly just countercharge, and it looks like Charix does just that, although it looks like a little bit of a weird charge. He did charge in the Sisters of Thorn, I think, to blunt the advance of the Chaos Warhounds. Granted, the Sisters are taking some damage. They do have physical resist and also the support of War Dancers, so it looks like they are able to win that fight pretty decisively. And Durthu's still holding it down here pretty well. Firebark Elders with the healing, and the Branch Wraith and Durthu should be able to win this fight against these units, whereas the Beastmen here get a massive Bulls on Parade here in the back and are able to run over quite a few of those units. So pretty close fight in terms of value. Players are pretty much just neck and neck here. We do have the Wraiths of the Frozen Heart coming in, so the ROR Dryads, which will be pretty exceptional at clearing out these chaff units. Only problem with them is that the Beastmen are just going to be able to bounce over with some heavy hitting power. So we see the Warghur character coming over, we see the Minotaurs, and that is going to be quite the stampede, as these Dryads really don't have too much support here. I don't see any Deepwood Scouts or any missile pieces that could really help them. So those Dryads basically going to be sacrificed to the whatever gods the Beastmen feel like worshipping this day. Overall, it looks like the Beastmen are getting a nice pull apart here. We see the Firebark Elders and Durthu still continuing to chop through these Minotaurs, so this is one aspect of the trading that's going well. I can't help but think that the Sisters of Thorn really aren't doing a whole lot. They've always been kind of a bit of a mediocre unit. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe there's some applications, some forbidden. Oh my god, that artifacting. Jeez. Okay, we got a little bit crazy when we moved in there, but anyways, the War Dancers still holding their own. You know, Shadow Coil does give them 62 melee defense, makes them very, very difficult to remove, which is kind of a cool thing, seeing players actually use that and have the micro to use it. Sisters of Thorn being hunted here. The other sisters back here throwing their javelins. Let's take a look at the value they've accrued so far. Currently, they're sitting at about 600, which isn't really terrible. I mean, Minotaurs with great weapons are very vulnerable against missile fire. They only have like 30-something armor, right? So the Wood Elves are still trying to get their back objective to counteract the Minotaurs. They do call in the Wild Hunters of Avernus. That's a really, really nice play by Charax here. So he must have called them out of the Vanguard point right here, and they are anti-large, and they're going to be able to melt Minotaurs pretty effectively if they get the charge, and it looks like they did. It looks like, as a matter of fact, they got a flank. So Butchers of Kalkengard are going down. The Wraiths of the Frozen Heart, not having a great time, heavily outnumbered. I mean, easily a 3-to-1 outnumber here. But the Wild Hunters of Kurnus should be able to finish off the Butchers of Kalkengard, chase them and kill the models, and then potentially come back and salvage this position, assuming the Wood Elves want to send more. Okay, they have a Glade Rider coming in to buffer the Wraiths, and with rear charging, the Beastmen should probably end up losing this position. We'll have to see. Side objective still owned by the Wood Elves. We do have Sisters of Thorn still fighting on the objective and kind of kiting some of the Beastmen units. And Big Daddy Durthu could be a problem, man. Yeah, he's still around. He's still got quite a bit of HP. It looks like there's a little bit of artifacting coming out of the earth right here behind this rock, so I'll have to report that to the old map maker. But Durthu, in his trees, still bumping, still getting those heals. Both of them are very, very healthy. But the Beastmen kind of have the speed and maneuverability to not have to fight Durthu with a lot. That's kind of, something you'll often see. Whereas in like a land battle, you would eventually probably have to deal with Durthu, unless you killed everything else. In land battle, there were times where, you would see people ignore like a Sigval type character and just try and get army losses and everything else. But in Dom, it's a little bit easier to kind of ignore a big centerpiece character. Granted, centerpiece characters can also anchor points, right? And make it so that if you want that point, you're going to have to deal with them. So it kind of goes both ways a little bit. This back objective, though, still very comfortably owned by the Beastmen. The Butchers of Kalkengard, for some reason, they somehow, like Palpatine, have returned. Dryad's going to be moving in, and one Dryad unit probably could take several of these tattered units. And it looks like Charax will find a way to get this objective back, as he does pull the value lead. And now he's got kind of a blob fight like he wants, right? He's got a lot of the Beastmen corralled in this position, and looking around the battlefield, yeah, they have a lot of mobility back here. The Wild Hunters of Kurnus being healthy, Sisters of Thorn are back in business, and they've actually used like all their ammo. Okay, 1,200 value on the dreaded Sisters of Thorn. Have we found some forbidden arts here? It looks like maybe. The buffs in conjunction with their missiles, and Minotaurs, of course, being very, very popular. Centaurs also something else that they can be decent against. They do have enough speed, although Centaurs look to be a little bit faster. Not one poison, though, I suppose. Okay, that's pretty cool. Nice charge here. Really, really good play by Sandwich. He gets the rear charge. He gets the Centaurs around the back of the Wild Hunters of Kurnus. They are not going to enjoy that. Granted, the Wild Hunters might be able to turn around and potentially fight off these Centaurs, although the rear charge from the Centaurs is quite painful. Although they do have a little bit of support coming in from the Sisters, who probably at this point would want to rear charge in, and it looks like Charax is going to be doing that. So here they come for the woods, man. There they go. Big Daddy Durthu still fighting on the side objective here, as the Wood Elves do get that nice sandwiching charge. So they are going to be eating some well, I guess, I don't know. The Wood Elves probably be like vegetarians, right? I'm not really sure, but nice charge right there. And the Beastmen Centaurs are going to be broken. Back objective comfortably taken by the Wood Elves. They have a couple units of Dryads here and more Glade Riders who look to be maybe pushing the Beastmen home objective now. So Charax is going to be moving up. He's got Dryads heading that way. And the response from the Beastmen is going to be calling out some Minotaurs. So the Minotaurs are anti-infantry. So this is the dual axe variant. So it looks like Sandwich brought all the colors of the rainbow as it pertains to the Minotaurs. So these guys with their anti-infantry bonus should be quite exceptional at cutting through Dryad units. But Glade Riders and, I would imagine some of the other Wood Elf mobility might be able to find their way over here. We'll have to see. Butchers of Kalkengard trying to retreat, but being rode down by these Wood Elf Glade Riders. I always just love the Beastmen versus Wood Elf matchup. I can't wait to see that on tabletop. That's going to be so much fun. So, surrounding charge there, Butchers of Kalkengard getting hammered over on objective number 2. We do see the Beastmen holding on to this one. It's kind of back and forth, but it's really getting to the point where the Wood Elves will most certainly need a triple cap to win this game. So I think he's kind of playing that way, taking his time. We see some Deepwood Scouts coming up. I do think Deepwood Scouts are one of the better variants of archers against the Beastmen. The fact that they do have, they just hit so hard against light armor, and I think they're just a little bit more resilient. They have the loose formations, which is obviously quite nice, but they have the Vanguard deployment, which is obviously quite pertinent. And I could have sworn they have stock too. Yeah, they do have stuff. So they can creep up on their targets, and the Beastmen can't really predict them as easily. Whereas, like, the Glade Archers, you can see them coming and plan flanks for them, but these guys just pop out and really start putting some hurt on you. So Durthu getting a big terror out here, and we do see the Bray Shaman who's going to be in a little bit of danger. Morghur is obviously a pain in the butt. Durthu probably would be able to take him over time, but it would take a long time. Morghur is one of those like Sigval type characters that's so tanky, and oh my god, look at this Bray Shaman. He's like, screw this, I'm going home! And Durthu is probably going to wrestle this objective. Wood Elf Archer is moving up to the back objective, and it looks like the Beastmen are kind of running out of steam a little bit. You have to remember, Charix does also have some fat healing as well, so he's been dropping heals on Durthu and those Treekin the entire game, so that is another variable to be taken into account as it pertains to the bounce of power, which is the value up here on the left is what I mean. Old habits, man, old habits. So Minotaurs did pretty well, but the Wild Hunters of Avernus were able to come in, and even a couple really strong anti-large cavalry units are going to make the difference against those guys. And I think the Beastmen probably are going to get this objective flipped here as a nice curse going down. No, Flock from Durthu. Man, that was from downtown. You didn't really have the range on that? Man, it must have been an overcasted variant or something. I'm not sure. Well, overcast, I think, with Flock of Noon gives you extra damage, not necessarily range. But Deepwood Scouts probably going to be able to help melt these. The Wild Hunters of Avernus have been huge MVPs this game. 2,100 value on those. And the Dryads now heading up to the objective here as we do see the objective flipping a little bit in terms of capture rate. But the Beastmen doing a pretty good job holding on to it as they're just going to be setting out wave after wave of Centaur. And now the Wood Elves have almost flipped this objective, but the Beastmen are just barely holding on to it. He better make sure he stays. And this one is very much in flux here. That is a tight objective situation. So Durthu going to be trying to fight old Morghur the Shadowgate, but his regeneration and just he has this weird uncanny tankiness. Oh man, that objective not flipping is pretty rough. That is a very tough one. Look, Durthu's like trying to push Morghur off the objective, but Morghur's just hanging in there. But this objective is still being held onto by the Beastmen, and the Wood Elf Dryads fighting pretty cost effectively here for sure. Although the waves and waves of Centaur reinforcements of Sandwich making it hard. Race of the Frozen Heart on their way back in. Going to be eating a big charge, but they do have the Frostbite. So if the Beastmen do commit here, they are going to get slowed by the Frostbite, which means that the Dryads are going to be able to get a lot more kills as they try and flee. And you can see many of these Centaurs are now slowed down, and they are going to be getting munched on by the Race of the Frozen Heart. But really good Beastmen micro coming in from Sandwich. I mean, he's bouncing back and forth, but the Dryad capture weight is going to start really adding up here. So Centaurs have 4 capture weight, Dryads have 5, being an infantry unit. So that is something to take into account. This objective very close to being flipped here, and obviously, old Morghur here, he's very tanky. I can't tell you how many land battles I've casted back in Warhammer 2, and 1 even, where Morghur would just last for like another 10 minutes after the battle. And he like in Warhammer 1 and 2, he just had this weird thing where he counted for so much of the bounce of power. It was like super disproportionate. So like you couldn't even army loss him. It was just the most nightmarish, miserable thing. Him and Sigvald were, when Sigvald got buffed in Warhammer 2, they were really like the Dark Lords of those like miserable situations. Yeah, man, this objective is just the Beastmen are just holding on to that bad boy. And over here, it kind of looks like the Beastmen are holding on as well. Charix is up in value pretty considerably, but he is rapidly running out of time. And it's just a pretty colossal mistake not flipping this objective when he had the opportunity to. And now you can see he's starting to kind of flip it a little bit. But he did have a critical mass. So I think he should have secured this because it buys him a lot more time. And that could be potentially a situation that loses him the game. We'll have to see. So Deepwood Scouts on their way up, and we get more Glade Riders. Dryads still fighting on the point, but they have encountered some Minotaurs, and the Warghur on the Chariot actually being a pretty good little anchor piece. And I would imagine he's gotten some OK value, about 900, which isn't terrible. Charges coming in. Deepwood Scouts going to be flanked. Sandwich did get his Warhounds around the back, and that is going to be a big shutdown as we get more and more Dryads coming up here from Charix. Nice flank right there. Those poor Deepwood Scouts really going to be having a bad time. And overall, I don't know if they're going to have enough time. The Beastmen are still holding on to this objective. Somehow, Palpatine has returned, but it looks like it's pretty close to being flipped right now. A couple Gorherds coming in, but those Gorherds are just going to get terror-routed. Morghur could be killed, which would be a big leadership penalty, but really not capturing this objective, I think, was the blunder that might cost the Wood Elves the game, because they would have had a lot of time to work with this. But the Beastmen are able to get some good momentum, and that's one of the things. Like, Beastmen are a very niche faction in domination. I would say there's a couple Beastmen specialist players who can compete with them at a super high level, but yeah, a lot of people, I guess, they just aren't used to playing against them, and they're really good at swarming the battlefield. Like Vanguard deployment, all their infantry are pretty quick, which is one of the big strengths that like factions like Lizardmen have, and they just have such fast and furious mobility. So the battle actually gets pushed off the objective. Morghur the Shadowgate here getting hunted down, but look at the just scrappy Beastmen. He actually pulls the value back too, because many of the Beastmen forces here were able to get favorable trades against some of the overextending Wood Elves. And again, I think a big blunder here not getting this objective, which is now going to be flipping, but there's not going to be enough time. GG, well played. I really honestly thought that the Beastmen were going to lose that game at several points, but yeah, if he had summoned a Dryad on the back point, sent that Dryad to support Durthu, and then steal the objective, and then you send Durthu to the Beastmen home objective to just chain terror route them, I think the Wood Elves can win that game. I think it was totally winnable, but it's still cool to see. And we, watching games like this and seeing those kind of decisions being made, I think is some of the spice of life for sure. But yeah, scrappy Minotaur play, good mobility play, really, really heavy cycle charging from the Centaurs. It was just very, very impressive stuff. So Durthu was a beast, though. 3,400 value on him. He certainly took no prisoners. And the old Wild Hunters of Karnus were quite fun to see as well. So ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you enjoyed this one. And we will be back with more good content soon, hopefully. Cheers.